Good afternoon, everyone. It's fantastic to be here with such a distinguished group of panelists and have the opportunity to explore the topic of innovation in media and publishing. As we all know, the media landscape is undergoing rapid changes driven by new technologies, evolving audience expectations, and shifting platforms. Today, we will discuss how these innovations are reshaping the way we create, distribute, and consume content. From artificial intelligence and data driven journalism to the rise of new digital formats, we have so much to unpack. I'm eager to hear from my fellow panelists and all of you about your perspectives on the opportunities and challenges we face as we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible in this dynamic industry. Omnia, would you like to go first and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, and apologies for my background. My name is Omnia, and I'm a journalist, and I do work a lot with artificial intelligence in incorporating new ideas, easing up my life in terms of fact checking, although I have to fact check what our AI is doing for me. And I do agree with you, it's a completely new world, but it is in some cases a lot more efficient than how things work. It is so much easier to use artificial intelligence to search than to actually go on Google and search.
Sabine, would you like to share?
I'm the founder of Ananke. It's a digital development and media platform where we focus on gender voices from across Global South. I've got 26 plus years of experience in print and digital media, and I'm happy to be here. And I'd like Namrata, you to introduce yourself as well.
I'm Namrata, founder of Kimaya Creatives and BookBots India. We work with authors and publishing houses on editing to book marketing. And yes, we do use AI. We do encourage the use of AI, and we are here to explore how we do that with the ethical boundaries that we have there. So taking forward this conversation, Omnia, would you like to talk about the role of artificial intelligence in content creation and curation? How is it working, and whether you consider it to be,
Right.
You're in the good form, or do you think that it is a threat that it is meant out to be?
I mean, it's difficult to say if it's a good or a threat. Look, there are two types of usage where you go through, researching, being efficient, editing things in an easier way. That's one. And the other one where you actually could possibly hamper your innovation if you completely depend on it. You could use it. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I myself do that. We could use it to actually gain some ideas and develop the ideas on it. But at the same time, I have seen people who actually just copy paste whatever is given to them, and they just do not develop the idea. So whether that's good or bad, that's up to the individual. However, I would say that any technology is useful as long as it's part of your system and your work and your process to enhance your creative and being open to other parts of the world. In terms of content creation, of course, there are many tools that we can actually use. Of course, everybody's been using OpenAI's ChatGPT, but there's definitely other tools, whether Copilot by Microsoft or even others like Veo 2, Gemini, and so forth, where you actually could play with the technology, gain insights, and so forth, and then use different, whatever it brings out to you to actually assess if that is something that you want to continue with or not. I do think it's very efficient in terms of using it to actually to research. I use it to research, and that for me is a very efficient thing, and it cuts down my time rather than spending hours and hours and hours. But again, back to your initial point, whether that's good or bad, that really depends on the individual and how they see things for themselves. I would say anything that hampers your creativity and puts you in a loop of, not enhancing yourself is not something that I would recommend.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I see that Nahid has just joined us. Before we move to Sabine with this question, Nahid, could you please introduce yourself to the audiences?
Yeah, hi, I'm Nahid. I am a marketing and communications professional. I have a communications and PR agency based in Dubai. Nice to be
Great.
here. And I'm sorry for being late.
You just 1 or 2 minutes late. You're not late at all.
Yes, not an
Good.
issue at all. So, Sabine, would you like to share your thoughts on this, the role of artificial intelligence and how the content creation and curation has changed with regard to that?
So I am a big believer when it comes to adapting and adopting innovation, and amidst all this fear that we see every day, especially in the publishing, be it when you're talking about journalism or if you're talking about the literary landscape, and I also feel when it comes to the literary landscape, there's much more fear because of uh, I don't know. There's much more fear if you compare it with journalism or media. I've seen it going to different conferences and how different narratives are being presented, and I think that is because of this gap between we need to create a relationship with technology and tech companies as well, and we they should be there in our newsrooms, in the literary landscape, where publishing actually takes place, not just with the C-suite position people, but on the ground as well. That is really important because like for me, for instance, and all independent publishers, I think it's a gift to actually adopt technology because it's cost effective as well. It's sustainable. AI has completely transformed publishing, and not being able to see that, if we don't join the bandwagon soon, we'll be left behind. So that's what I think.
Right. Nandahid, would you like to share your thoughts on artificial intelligence and its impact on content creation in current times?
Well, it can be used as a platform tool. But in terms of actual creating the content, because Sabina and I have had this kind of discussion before as well. So I think in the area of literature, I wouldn't call it fear, but there is a sort of a negative connotation about AI because it shouldn't be used for creative purposes. That's the sort of thought process that a lot of people working in literature, writers and poets, and people writing nonfiction as well, but who are creative writers, they're saying. Technology is great as a tool in terms of giving you a platform. So, for example, Sabine's whole conference being online, if technology wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened, obviously, and us meeting here. So that's all great. But in terms of actual creating content, even for something like LinkedIn, my last post was about this. So the tone of voice, I think, is so important for creative, non-creative. Anybody who works in communications, like Omnia does, and I do, and you guys, I'm sure, do. Your own tone of voice is so important. You need to have a unique voice to stand out because there's so much clutter, there's so much noise. And if everybody is using AI and the tools are not, they are coming in, there's constant innovation happening, but right now there's a limited number of tools. So using that to create content, I think that's still, we should be, careful about it. And if you're doing it, at least give time to it, attention to it, and add your own personality and your uniqueness and your voice to it before you just send it out in the world. So, so my thought is that on content creation. But yes, technology has made our life easier. It's given us flexibility to reach out to the world, and there's no denying that. Yeah, that's essentially my thought on it.
I'd like to add in that as well, because there are two things that we need, and that comes from having that relationship with technology and tech companies and stakeholders belonging to tech, which is that you need to see you know AI as a tool, and what kind of tool, the purpose it serves. Because on the one hand, leveraging it to create content, that's something that might happen with, predictive and generative AI and so on and so forth, maybe in a decade or so, not happening now. But, leveraging it for, these certain things, be it independent publishing or managing content. For that, basically, I think these would be effective ways of uh, using these tools.
To me, that's the complete reliance of it that you're seeing now, and especially the younger generation, you see an absolute reliance on even their research. I've met people who run AI companies, and they've said, research that comes out of Claude or ChatGPT, and that's not foolproof. It's a more refined form of Wikipedia where people are putting in things, but you still need to check and recheck. And for journalism, for example, if you're doing research of AI tools, that isn't really right. You need to dig
Absolutely.
deeper. You need to do
Absolutely.
your own research, and a lot of it is not happening. So again, if you go to social media, that you see the same kind of, there's a theme that gets picked up. Everybody's talking about it. There's no uniqueness to anything. There is obviously, alternative facts floating around. So I think, and tech companies won't get involved because it's a business for them. So I think the governments across the world are now talking about it, that tech companies need to get on board, and that isn't happening, and that I don't think will happen because it's going to impact their revenues. So I don't know what the right solution to all this is, because it's an evolution. It's happening. We're living through this whole transformative generation, really. So we can talk all about it, but honestly, I don't think anybody really has a solution.
There are many layers to it as well, because when you're talking about managing content, or the same content being churned, there are different layers to it as well, because who is feeding that data to the AI? This again, technology and AI has to work at the intersection of all these things coming together. Who that the person who's feeding technology, those who are using it, and just like in every industrial revolution, uh, the lower tiers are then decimated, with managers doing the work. So that basically, that's what we need, and that's what you're talking about, that right now, whatever is being done, it has to be managed. And definitely it's something that we need to not just do now, but even later as well.
Is let's not forget, it's for human beings. It's to make our lives better.
Yeah.
I think that aspect always has to be kept in mind. And in terms of creative industries, I think machine can never do it better than humans. So
but now I'm being a devil's advocate here. That's my disclaimer. But I came across this term by one of the speakers, and I really loved it. And that speaker, he writes speculative fiction, and he said, narcissism of the human gaze. So are we being narcissistic and arrogant? Let's ask Omnia first, and then, Namrata, you, and Nahid.
I don't necessarily agree. Well, it's really depends. Again, it depends on the output of the work. So sometimes, yes, we could use that technology to create good work. And then again, people have to review it, people have to go through it to see if it's tailored to what they want. Or or sometimes, you know, they will agree with whatever the output is. So the output is really what defines whether the technology has added value in that sense or not. There are many people around the world that are using this technology in the creative industries to actually create or to assess them to create masterpieces. And that's fine. And that's absolutely okay. There's no issue in that whatsoever. Again, for activity or to enhance it. And based on that, we can say whether the technology has been effective or not. I mean, I was just in the Culture Summit a few days ago here in Abu Dhabi, and the exact same discussion was going on. And you would find different artists actually, you know, saying, yeah, we use it to give us ideas. And some artists who seems, you know, flabbergasted, like enough of talking about AI in creative industry. We get it. You're just obsessed with the idea. So it's a subjective matter, and it depends on from one person to another. I can't, you know, again, I can't evaluate what is the value of it. The output evaluates what's the value of it. When the output is the work overall and the time consumed to create the work and the value in terms of the work that the work brings to the public, all of this are different components that makes us evaluate whether the technology has been effective or not. It's not unhealthy to use it. It's unhealthy to strongly depend on it to the level that you can't move forward. But if you want to use it for research, why not? If you want to get ideas, why not? If you wanted to cut down your data, why not? But again, that's all good as long as it does not hamper you as a human being and rather makes you assist you as a human being to become better.
I have actually different thoughts on this and a varied of thoughts. So my concern with AI comes only on two facts, and that is ethics and copyrights. Rest everything is good. Like we are a generation which has seen everything evolve. We went from typewriters to computers, we survived. Even when computers came, we felt threatened. We felt everything is challenged. Yes, there was a chunk of job market which was redundant, who refused to learn or who refused to adapt. Maybe AI will also do that. But what is also scary is that we don't have rules. Like America has already done that. They have rules, they have laws. Amazon has also got a category on AI books. In India, we haven't yet even sat and outlined anything. So if something happens, if you know there are authors' works which are being taken, you know that ChatGPT or any AI for that matter uses the content which is already there for training. So what happens after that? What happens, like even that Ghibli art which happened, that trend which started, it actually had the maker to come out and say that, you know, I'm not okay with people using this and it takes hours or years for us to work on that, but it is just available at the click of a button. So who monitors all that? Do we have somebody who's like, you know, a censor board or maybe a authority whom we can complain, whom we can actually ask? Because it's scary, you know, they can actually take images of women, they can make porn videos, they can just do voiceovers. I don't know, it's the
But
scare,
that's
the level of
that,
AI that it can do is
but
just too
that's where
much.
regulation comes in. Namrata, but that's where regulation comes in. I can't blame the technology for it.
Exactly.
I
You
blame
can't, yeah,
I
that's what
ask
I'm
the
saying.
regulators and the policymakers, where do you stand in all of this? How do you regulate what is your role in all of this when it comes to this technology? And there has been questions everywhere, and it seems like at this point in time, each country it's to its own. You know, whoever wants to do whatever they want to do. But I agree with you, it is scary, as in things can develop in a very negative way. But again, this is all what the regulators should be doing. The policymakers should ask these
Yeah, so
questions. They should ensure that the tech companies are training their machines in right.
and when we talk about adapting or adopting, we also need to ensure that the countries we work or the industries we work have also adapted. Like if publishing has come up with a category of AI writing, US has got publishing houses which are marketing it. You will get your book in one day because AI will write it for you. The literal new publishing houses have just come up like this. And, you know, we don't have even laws in India for that. It's so funny. Like, just if you have
Yeah.
something, you want us to use it, give us laws. Show that this is okay, this is not okay. Or at least instill that fear among the users that, okay, if you do this or if you use AI for this, you will be, you know, legally tried, or it is illegal, or you'll be punished. Or that's where the problem is, that there are authors who are now facing issues that their books have been plagiarized and used by ChatGPT. And Sam Altman of ChatGPT feels that authors need not be compensated for their work being used. He's on record saying all of that. So it's very interesting to see that, you know, we are all okay. We want to all go gung-ho. We are okay that we are leaving out copy editors and proofreaders because AI does that very well. So we have now reduced the cost of editing. But then we are not talking about the quality. Who ChatGPT, if it is editing or an AI is editing, it's relying on some source which is already fed to it. So then again, you are somewhere encouraging that. So as
Yeah.
Omnia rightly said, we need regulations in place. When we look at the impact also, we should train, we should evolve. That is very important. But we need regulations in place, because that ethical crisis is very urgent, especially when it comes to artists' works, be it painting, anything.
But
Yeah,
also
but
those who depend.
regulations sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, but also, we spoke earlier for the session about how certain people would actually prefer hiring, and not sorry, prefer using ChatGPT over hiring. As in thinking, for example, a marketing plan can be executed through AI, and that's it, with no any sort of human interference. It's really about explaining to people that this technology, and even though there are so many conferences, so many places, so many panelists are saying this technology is to assist you to become better, it is not a replacement of human creativity. Still, there are certain people who think it is a replacement of human creativity. I mean, you can only on increasing the awareness of how to use it and what to do and how to incorporate it in your work to be more efficient. But again, it's just like any technology. I can't blame it. It's a human thing. We decide to use thing in a negative way. It's human nature. It has nothing to do with technology. I mean, technology is neutral. Although in this case, the technology is actually also not neutral, given how it gets trained. We train it through our own biases and posts on our biases and so forth. So it's a conundrum, actually.
Yeah, I agree with Omnia. You know, it's you can't blame the technology, but well, it's a code of morality that applies on everything, and that includes AI and that includes technology. And ultimately, if there is an onus on somebody, it's the technology companies. And we've seen it even in the US, as you're saying, there may be some regulations, but we've seen in the recent years how technology has played its role in not a positive way, you know, in how the politics in America are happening. And so they will go where the money is. So it's not going to happen. It's ultimately going to be a moral code. And it's ultimately, I think, parents and families need to get involved. And Australia, they've passed the law now, under 16s are not, you know, can't be on social. I don't know how they're going to implement that, because I've seen like 8-year-olds with their smartphones, and here at least. So I don't know how that's going to happen. But ultimately, you know, it will boil down to families and communities and really code of ethics that our parents have taught us, okay, this is wrong and this is right. But technology, what it's done is it's made it so much easier to do something wrong if you're bent that way. Like what you were saying, Amrita, you know, I attended a session recently, and oh my God, the way, you know, so this woman was there, and she was just walking up and down, they videoed her, and then they can superimpose anybody's face and voice and make her do whatever, you know. So that one video can be used in multiple ways. So it's really, really scary. So how we use the technology is ultimately down to human beings, and how do you train human beings? I mean, it's ultimately your parents who give birth to you, and your teachers and your community and all of that.
I think also how regulation, or how this could be not a solution, but one way of going forward in a positive way, or more or less an objective way, would be to democratize the tech industry. when DeepSeek came, there was a furore, and it changed. You know, I mean, people went crazy, right? And there were so many views coming up. So I think democratizing the landscape is really important when it comes to policy making as well. When it comes to leveraging tech, that's what I think.
Quite agree with you, Sabine. And to answer your question that are we being narcissistic about ourselves, I feel that in the recent 10, 15 years, we've actually all across the world, we have seen everybody develop a certain God complex. That's the word they use in theory. And I've seen everybody wants to do what God does. I wanted to make it rain where rain cannot happen, but I'll make it happen. I want this to happen. So that when you look at that God complex, you realize that everybody wants to do. See, AI has very good roles. Like there was recently a lady who has a child with a rare illness, which for 14 years no doctor was able to diagnose. With the help of ChatGPT, she got a diagnosis that son is healing. There was another person who shared that AI detected cancer even 5 years before actually medical tests would have shown that person is cancerous. So there are good things. There are very good things.
Minority Report.
Yeah.
But I
There-
want to talk a little bit about that God thing because yes, I agree with you, but that is because of social media. That idea of like I have a social media account. I broadcast my thoughts and my ideas, and people who are fans of me, they listen to me, and then I can block them if I don't want. I can just not talk to them. I am whoever I am. So I wouldn't say it's an industry thing. It is more of a human nature, and it's something that has been happening way long, yes, and it's been happening because of social media. I've seen it even in like human interactions, people at the gym blocking each other because they don't want to talk to each other because I'm so important, you don't talk, I have my crowd, and so forth. It's again, I cannot blame the technology. I can only say this is a human nature, and we just whatever is inside us is getting accelerated through tech, and it has nothing to do with intelligence or artificial intelligence, or it just has to do with human nature. But it's actually an interesting trend that I have witnessed even on a very small scale, and it's shocking because it's ignited from ignorance, sorry, rather than arrogance. They're just being ignorant. And that could be also arrogance in certain instances, in certain industries, as in like, I can best painting on earth, and this technology cannot paint as good as me. Maybe yes, maybe no. We'll have to test it. We'll have to art is subjective, and creativity is also subjective. You might think you're creative, others think you're dumb. It happens. It's sad, but it happens. So it's all it's a complex thing, but I agree with you. There is this idea of like, I am the most important person on earth, and it is ignited through tech.
So we would like to touch upon how legacy media organizations, digital platforms, and publishing, of course, they are adapting to the digital age. Nahid, would you like to share your thoughts first?
Sure, I work with legacy media, so yeah. Well, they are struggling. I don't know about India, but in the UAE, they're really, really struggling, and they are really losing that true, essence of journalism in the process, because they have to survive. In order to survive, they have to generate revenue. People are, well, from print to digital. That happened a few years ago. Print copies are still there, but not that much. But journalists as such, because it's a 24/7 cycle now, and because they have to put up news, and because people get their news not from the original sources, but from social media or various other sources, they've lost their jobs, So newsrooms in the past few months, and Omnia can, maybe she also knows about the National, for example, Omnia. The national newspaper cut down their newsroom by 50% in the last 2 months. So I think 27 journalists were let go in one swoop, And what does that mean for the quality of journalism, obviously? It's all being generated by the same number of people or by technology, who knows? But again, you can't blame them, because how do they survive? Paid media has become a norm, and paid media dressed as news. It's not news, really. Um, but how can you blame them? Because their news is taken up by whatever source, Facebook, and mainly it's Facebook. I mean, there's this people may say Facebook is dead, but it's not, because there are all these people getting their news from Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever, But the main source of news generation is still those legacy media channels, but they are not the platforms that people are visiting, and they are losing money and they are bleeding. So how technology can help them? Well, they're looking at different things. They've gone into events, and they've gone into different kinds of platforms. So there's a luxury platform that Khaleej Times has just started. So they're struggling. I mean, I can see the struggle, and I wish in our lifetimes we still see those media platforms alive, but I don't have great hope for it, really. It's going to be a different generation of I don't know how and where the next generation is going to get their news from.
I
That's
mean,
an
we also
interesting question. Yeah,
yeah,
Umdia, please, I was coming to
I want to
you.
build that. It's that we see, for instance, Monify, which is a new platform. Speaking of Nahid's points, that they actually took to social media to share their news, and they don't even share it as news. They share it as videos where Gen Z explain the news in a fun, interactive way. So is that journalism? I don't know. Can we account it as journalism? I don't know. It redefines, if we're going to see more and more of this kind of platforms, it definitely redefines. But it's also very unique, as in it's not a own trend going on within many. I was just recently on a platform that they were competing with influencers, and the question was, are you going in, like, you have a website, you have production teams, but why are you competing with influencers within that space? What is it really that you're trying to do? So it is a question on how are they going to, how are these organizations going to sustain? But at the same time, we see good journalism still doing well in certain parts of the world. Maybe they're not doing the big bucks, and yes, they went into events and so forth, but they're still doing well. Here it's different. Here the concept of journalism is also different. So let's go back to content. There isn't the content here is more of news content, like this happened in this organization, this happened in the government, and that's it. There isn't really in depth or more as analytical as in other parts of the world. I don't know. It's different countries, different ways, and different kind of readers as well. Maybe in other parts of the world, there are people who enjoy reading long form in comparison to here. But again, back to the original point, yes, it's changing. They definitely feel the heat from social media, and this has been ongoing for a decade plus. We have to innovate in the space to actually be able to survive.
But to add a little bit, at the same time, I see publications like the Financial Times, they're still not only there, but they're producing great content. So when the weekend newspapers in the UAE were killed, really, and I thought, okay, no, I need my newspaper over the weekend. So I started subscribing to Financial Times, and my God, the content is so good. So what Omnia is saying, analysis, reports, not just news. So there's still readership for that. So they are, but again, what I would think is, it's still a very much a generational thing. So these
Yeah.
video, descriptors of the news or explanatory in these videos, that's how people maybe under 20 would like to consume the news. But somebody has to produce that news. And that there has to be at least a level of training in that, journalistic training in that, fact checking, just simple fact checking, If that goes missing, it's not news. So
I think we're the transitional generation here. That's why we're talking about this, and I do think that if you look at some of the projects New York Times or Washington Post has done using AI, it's mind blowing. The timelines and the stuff they're producing. We should take note, and take cue from all these projects that they've been doing, and I think because we're in a transitional state, we're a transitional generation. All the things that we're doing, and I do think even journalism is at that transitional point. We're talking about legacy and traditional ways of doing things, and then there's innovation. So maybe we have to, and this has been my thing for the entire all 3 days, that we need to stop thinking in terms of binaries, that this is how journalism should be, and not not saying stop thinking, but I think we're going to move, and even journalism will be evolving into something like Omnia just said, that fun and explanatory videos that would be, right now it's fact checking. A few years later, it may be something, some other word coined for that, where you're doing it in a fun way, because that's what your audience would be, needing, or that's their requirement. Right now, because of the generation, our generation belongs to, belong to the, all these, we've experienced, like Namrata said, we've used the typewriter as well. Then up came the keyboards, and now it's touch screen. So that's what I think.
What I also feel is that every legacy media, or even the ones who are just very new at the moment, even in publishing, like digital magazines, literary magazines and all, they've all tried to evolve with this trend, starting from, paid subscriptions, which I'm sure a lot of legacy media has also done. So somehow that has become a quality filter, in my opinion. Like, what I feel, that if it's a paid article, it has to be very good. The quality of that article is much better from the free content that I tend to read. So that makes me see more value in paying, that okay, I'm paying for this quality, and that makes it fair. Though there are people who don't agree with that, but then of course revenue models need to be there, people need to be paid, as Nahid rightly pointed out, that there are people who are losing out jobs because of this, because of their reliance on AI. So I think every legacy media, every aspect of publishing, be it journalism, newspapers, magazines, or even publishing for that matter, publishing houses, they are all trying to come up with alternative revenue streams to, keep adding to their current revenue model for this, because of the aspect of AI and every other digital changes that we are seeing. So now we will come to one of the most interesting questions, like Nai that just talked about. Is print dead? Do you think that everybody has to evolve? Is there a trend that you see there? Omnia, can we start with your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily think it's completely dead, and I actually think in certain cases when it is needed. So I've worked with events companies, and ironically enough, events companies like to print certain stuff, and you get a lot of advertisers there. I have seen people in certain generations who still enjoy reading print. So I would say maybe not completely dead, but also it's evolving. It's rather than the big newspapers, maybe you have the smaller ones and so forth. Well, however, we're talking at this point, but maybe in the future, within the next 3 to 5 years, it will be reduced more and more and more. We have been saying is print dead since I was at college 17 years ago, and it's still there. So it's not dead, it's evolving.
I love that. It's very beautifully put. Nahid, please, would you like to add your thoughts to this?
Yeah, no, it's not dead. And gratifyingly, I see sort of a resurgence of print books because I see a lot of younger people reading books instead of on Kindle. I have no idea whether it's a trend thing or whatever, but I see that. I'm a member of a library here, and on Saturdays when I go there, I see teenagers actually borrowing books, and it's so heartening. So I think there's still a demand for that, and obviously it's a generational thing, as Omnia said. So older people, which would be us right now, are, I mean, not only but maybe me and Sabine, because we've grown up with print newspapers, we still, hanker after that feel of reading on paper. And as I said, Financial Times, it still sells. There's a 4% in the last year. There's a 4% growth in their print sales. So not a huge growth, but still, it's there. I think it's going to be around for a while. And as everything runs in cycles. So we are going through a cycle, but paper is there, and the experience of reading on paper is there. So I think it's going to come back even as a trend. I don't care if it comes back, but I think it's still going to be there in our lifetimes at least.
So that brings us to the end of this interesting session. Thank you all for joining us today for what has been a truly insightful and energizing conversation. We have explored how innovation is reshaping media and publishing, from the rise of AI and data-driven content strategies to the challenges and opportunities facing legacy media as it adapts to a digital-first world. As we move forward, I hope we can continue to strike a balance between honoring the values that have defined media and publishing for generations while embracing the bold ideas that will shape its future. Let's stay curious, collaborative, and courageous in this journey. Thank you again for all our panelists for their thoughtful perspectives. To all of you for being a part of this conversation. Let's keep it going on stage, online, and in the work we do every day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.